Matt Patricia got fired by the Detroit Lions. Him and Bob Quinn got fired. And I want to know your thoughts on it. What do you think is next for Detroit now?
This was the best news that the Lions fans could have possibly heard. And it's a multitude of reasons. And I know that you're going to get into some of it further than I can. But he just showed up and he had way too much bravado without performance to back it up. There are only so many guys in the league that can act the way that he acted when he came into the head coaching role. You look at it, back when Rex Ryan came to the Jets, he acted like a jerk. There's no way around it. You saw it every week on Hard Knocks. But the fact of the matter is he came out and went to 2 straight back-to-back AFC championship games. Bill Belichick acts like a jerk in the media. But the fact of the matter is he's the greatest coach in NFL history, at least up there. So if you're going to act the way that Matt Patricia acted, coming in after Jim Caldwell, who had 3 out of the last 4 of his seasons were winning seasons, and you're going to talk about how the team was soft under him and he was holding them back, and you're calling out players, you need to back that up as a coach, and it has to show in your performance. But the fact of the matter is he came in, never had a winning season, never made the playoffs, and forced out multiple players. Some of them not as good as others, but Glover Quinn, Golden Tate, Quandre Diggs, especially Darius Slay on top of all of them, were all forced out mainly because of him. And there were other players as well. And you saw the reaction on Twitter yesterday. It ignited the Detroit Lions Twitter world because all of these players that had played for him in the past and knew what kind of guy he was, they were happy for Lions fans. Because when players like Darius Slay leave the Lions, under those circumstances, it's not because he wanted out of Detroit. He just couldn't play under Matt Patricia anymore. And it goes back to that training camp. They had the combined training camp practice with them and the Giants, and him and Darius Slay got into a fight. Darius Slay leaves the field and then posts a picture of him and Odell training. And then Matt Patricia comes back the next day and shows the picture on the whiteboard and embarrasses him in front of the entire team. It's just not the way that you run a team.
I mean, part of Matt Patricia's problem is that, and part of the Lions' problem is that they try to do what the Patriots did. They got Bob Quinn. They got Matt Patricia in there, but they're not as good as Belichick and never will be. The problem with Matt Patricia is that he wanted to be a hard-nosed coach, but he doesn't have that credibility to do that. There are certain guys that can do that. You can go in and you can kind of bully players and stand your ground as a coach if you've played in the NFL before. Like a guy like Robert Saleh can get away with it, but a short guy that's chubby like Matt Patricia, he doesn't look like he's a very tough guy. Like you can't get away with trying to punk these athletes because they know what's up, you know? So Matt Patricia tried to do too much of that. I mean, his record shows for itself. 13-29-1 as the coach. Before he got there, they were 9-7 both years. That's a bad move by Bob Quinn to fire Jim Caldwell.
And he was a well-liked and respected guy, Jim Caldwell.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a bad move by Bob Quinn. But then you look at Detroit Lions, like you look at Matt Patricia. He got hired in Detroit for being a defensive coach, defensive mastermind. It's easy to do it when you're with Bill Belichick and you have all the players to do it. But then in Detroit, in 2018, they finished 10th in yards. They finished 16th in points. 2019, 31st in yards, 26th in points. And this year, they're 29th in yards and 31st in points. And I don't know if anybody has ever looked at Detroit's defensive roster, but it's not bad. It's not this bad. They should be a top 15 defense in the NFL. And if they get a coach that's better, they would have been. They would have been. But Patricia's just not that guy. And you talked about former players calling him out. I mean, the former Detroit Lions tight end Garrett Hudson said that Patricia was the worst person that he's ever met. Oh and I can't name my sources, but I have sources that used to play for Patricia, and they do not like him. The practices are rough. He's a mean guy. He's mean spirited. I mean, there were guys that when they practiced, they wouldn't even be ready for the games. Their legs would be done up for the games because Patricia's practices were so brutal. I mean, in the NFL, you just can't do that. You have to prioritize rest. These are professional athletes. They're not high schoolers. And when you come in as a grown man and you try to punk other grown men, you see what happens. It's not going to work, and nobody's going to respect that.
Yeah, and you said it, as a defensive head coach, to come in and be as bad defensively as the Lions were under him, it's inexcusable. And I know the one game that we watched single-handedly be a microcosm of what the Lions have been under him, the Jets in Sam Darnold's opener. It was against a rookie quarterback, his first ever NFL start, and Matt Patricia was coming in these big expectations. They get the pick six, and then everything went downhill from there. It was arguably the best performance of Sam Darnold's career on that Monday. I believe it was Monday Night Football. And since then, it's been no better. And you said it, they have talent in the building. You look at them this year, they're sitting at 4-7. They could easily be in the playoff conversation with the right coach.
They've blown about 4 games that they've had double-digit leads in. I mean, you look at their defense, I don't think they're a bad squad. You have Desmond Trufant, who was a really good cornerback in his day, and I think he shows flashes of it. Justin Coleman, he's a good nickelback. Who's the guy? Jeff Okudah, the 3rd overall pick.
Yeah.
Trey Flowers, he's a good edge rusher. Danny Shelton, he's not bad. Jamie Collins coming off the edge. Like, these guys aren't horrible. Deron Harmon they have too. Like, the guys that they have aren't horrible to be the 31st ranked defense in the NFL. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You brought up a guy in Jeff Okudah who, coming out of school, was supposed to be one of the best cornerback prospects in recent memory. He was by far the best cornerback in college football last season and probably the season before, and he's coming to the NFL, and I get it. It's a tough position to adjust to at the NFL level, but he has been one of the worst cornerbacks in the league this season. And under a defensive head coach, that should not happen. Talent should develop under him. And not only has Okudah been bad, he hasn't developed at all. He hasn't gotten better over the course of the season. So something is wrong there.
Well, we've talked about Matt Patricia, but the guy that can't go unnoticed is Bob Quinn. I mean, one, you fired Jim Caldwell after he gives you 2 9-7 seasons. You choose to pull the trigger and fire him. And Jim Caldwell actually talked to a reporter and said that he was trying to fire him, I believe, in 2016. Like, the year that he first came in, he was trying to fire Jim Caldwell. But you look at Bob Quinn. Stephen Tulloch went on Twitter and even said that he loves that Bob Quinn and Patricia got fired, that Detroit deserves better. Eric Ebron tweeted about it, and he's like, I might give Bob Quinn a call and wish him well. And then just his draft has been abysmal. Not too bad, but there was this one draft where he drafted Gerard Davis, a middle linebacker, with the first round pick. Then his second round pick was Tease Tabor out of Florida. Both of them were busts. And now, just recent memory, he drafted Jelani Tavai, who has not, like, I thought he showed some flashes his rookie season, but he has not panned out so far. I think it's mostly coaching because I think he has some potential and talent. But even at the time, people said that he drafted Tavai way too high in the draft.
Yeah. And the problem is Quinn had catered to Matt Patricia for the past 3 years. It had always been Patricia first, especially when it comes to a guy like Darius Slay, who is one of the best corners in football, and you side with Matt Patricia, who hasn't shown you anything, over Darius Slay. It just goes to show you what side he's on. And at that point, if Matt Patricia's going, you might as well clean house and start over.
Yeah, I just feel like what's next for Detroit is they got to bring in a good head coach. First things first. I really don't think I think the talent is there. Like, this team is a playoff team. I really believe that. Matthew Stafford, I think, is still a great quarterback, and they pretty much just wasted about 4 years of his prime.
Yeah.
Because he's a hell of a quarterback, and he's never been put in a situation to succeed and to have sustainable success. So I hope that the Lions bring in a good coach, a good manager, and they finally get this thing right for Detroit. They just need somebody that can uplift the team and get their defense better, because if that defense is average, Detroit is a playoff team, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and if you got to feel bad for Matthew Stafford, who has been painfully underrated for pretty much his entire career, because what has he been really surrounded by in Detroit? Other than Calvin Johnson, they've had some nice pieces, but they've never given him that full coaching, defense, offensive weapons. The offensive line has never been that great. So, I feel like we've never gotten to see what Matthew Stafford really is. And now the question is, did they wait too long? Have they wasted too much of him? And with a new head coach coming in, are they going to want to move on for Matthew Stafford? It's a lot of question marks, and they've put themselves in a not great position just because where Matthew Stafford is at right now, I feel like he's on the tail end of at least the tail end of his prime, if not the tail end of his career. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes in and what decisions they make. Do they think they can still win with Stafford immediately? And if so, then you got to step on it and make moves to make it a quick turnaround.
Hey, what's up, guys? You just finished watching a clip of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran.
My name is Jack Barteck.
And my name is River Brown.
And we are your hosts for this podcast. We want to thank you guys for watching the clip. Like, subscribe, and comment, and share if you would care to, because it helps us grow. And we're trying to make this a full-time thing. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting, and see you next time.